Good morning, everyone who are here with us this morning and those who watch us online. And we start our work at Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Today we are going to speak about first travel grant of Bohdan Solchanyk and the travel of researchers of Ukraine to Oxford and Cambridge. Stepan Solchanyk, brother of Heavenly 100 hero Bohdan Solchanyk, Daria, Dvornichenko, finalist of the travel grant, Oksana, Kohut, finalist of the travel grant, Myroslava, Hartmond, representative of St. Edmund Hall College, Kateryna, Busol, vice president of the Cambridge community in Ukraine, and Lina Swiderska, Cambridge Alumni Club president. Welcome. Good morning, dear friends. For me, this is a really wonderful event. We met with Olga a year ago in the framework of the Council of the NGO Family of Heavenly 100 Heroes, and I was invited as an expert, and we were asked to create awards that would mark the achievements of our heroes. And I knew the story of Bohdan Solchanyk, and I knew about his tragic death when I was in Oxford, and I got this information from a Ukrainian community in Oxford, and in local newspaper there was an article on this by Pavlo Smyk. He studied at the theology faculty, and I worked as a researcher of Oxford in Ukraine, and as a researcher I was working in Ukraine in these difficult times, and I thought what I can do in order to improve the visibility of Ukraine in international scientific arena, because many times I attended international conferences, and I was the only representative of Ukraine, and the position of Ukraine was highlighted by Russian side. So the researchers came from Russia, and they described Ukrainian situation instead of Ukrainians. And now Ukraine face many challenges in different arenas, in different areas. And my field is scientific field, and our field is scientific field. And I think that Kateryna Busol will tell us more about scientific community today. And I would like that we had more Ukrainian faces, more Ukrainian topics in the area. And one of the obstacles is lack of connections, relations between research institutions of Ukraine and Western institutions. That's why I proposed this idea, and it was supported and adopted not only by Olga Klymko from this organization, but also it was supported by the families and by community of alumni of Cambridge and Oxford. That's why I would like that we meet more often, and I would like to give a floor to our finalists, Daria, Dvornichenko, and Oksana Kohut. Their nominations were adopted by the top universities, and we wish them every success in their further development. Thank you. And we thank Myroslava. I would like to tell about the grant and what we as an organization committee need to improve the procedure. And we call on you to be more open, and it is really pleasant that today's finalists they have critical attitude towards themselves. They want to develop themselves. They ask for recommendations concerning writing articles to improve their argumentation. And in the course of communication with people we choose, we learn a lot in the process. We understood that we also have to deliver training on essays in English, and Myroslava will help us in this. So if you want to apply for grant, we will ask you to write to our Cambridge page. For example, you may see that you applied for a Cambridge conference, but for example, they didn't allow you to participate because your arguments were not clear enough. And we will provide training for you. We will provide recommendations on Facebook pages. And we ask you to help us in order that this initiative was collective for common good, not just one-sided initiative. Second, I fully agree with Myroslava that we face a big problem, that narrative about Ukraine is formed not by Ukrainians. In the majority of cases, these are Russians. In some cases, these are people from Poland or from Baltic states. And for example, I also read something from American and British researchers. So we should form position about the events in Ukraine, that this information should be provided by Ukrainians, and this is the aim of our travel grant. We should not idealize, we should provide proper information, we should highlight the events that are going on in our country. And also we have another problem, and I see it in the area of war crimes that I deal with. So when you speak about Brexit, when you speak about Syria, about war crimes in other countries, in Burma, for example, they do not have this attitude towards you because they say you are expert from Ukraine, so speak about Ukraine. So we want to see applicants who can provide quality information about Ukraine and reforms and Ukraine. And also you should not reduce to this post-Maidan idealism, write applications for specific topics of research, speak about areas that are not developed in Ukraine, and Ukraine is not representative in this area. You have the chance to establish your name and the title of Ukraine as the state that can support IT, for example. So we greet applicants from first and second area, both Ukrainian and not Ukrainian. They are equally important. And now I would like to give the floor to Stepan Solchanyk. This is brother of, he is the brother of Bohdan. I met with this family, and they live in Stary Sambor. They greeted me there, so it is difficult to say something about it. When you speak with the family, when they show what Bohdan did, and I was surprised that he was able to write books, to defend his thesis, to organize football club with his brother and father, also to create some other work and to perform some other activities. So we thank these people for their support, that they support new generation. And Stepan, could you please tell more about Bohdan and about expectations from our finalists? I will be grateful to you for this. I would like to say that Bohdan, he is still with us. He is with us. He is present here today. I believe that today he should be here instead of me. Sometimes I feel that I took his place, and I believe that he is here. Yes, you visited us. You saw how Bohdan lived until he was 17. Then he started new life, and Bohdan, he was formed as an individual there, and then he became different after he came from there, so he started to think about other things. I don't know. Ask me something. Girls, maybe I would like to address to our finalists and ask you, why did you decide to be associated not only with Oxford and Cambridge, but first of all with Bohdan? As Stepan said, we want that these heroes, they should be with us today, not in the past. Thank you for this question. First of all, I would like to tell not only about myself and about Oxford community. I wanted to join those changes that are possible here in Ukraine today. For me, this is the opportunity to deliver a cultural and scientific diplomacy to become an agent of changes in the scientific community in Ukraine. I agree fully with Kateryna. Science in Ukraine is focused on research in Ukraine that are connected with Maidan or politicized, and too much ideology is present. That's why young Ukrainian researchers, they do not have the opportunity to be seen, to be published in serious publications that do not agree with this politics in science. And for me, this was the way how to prove that in Ukraine we have such young researchers, scientists. And now I speak not only about myself. We have young scientists who work in different areas, not only in the sphere of research of events that happened after Maidan or during Maidan. So why this grant? I believe that the message that I read from the interview of Alina and Myroslava, the message, the main idea of this grant is really interesting to me. It correlates with my own idea to support active, proactive youth who not only focused on Euromaidan. This is what I like. I believe that this is the best way to make the name of Bohdan Solchanyk known all around the world. So I greet everyone. First of all, I would like to say that the words of Bohdan's brother, they really touched our souls, and in this context I would like to explain why I've chosen this travel grant and how I see the aim of this grant. This is the project that really has big future, because such initiatives, they promote development of Ukrainian researchers and provide quality approach to writing scientific work and to popularization of such works. But we also can continue the cause of Bohdan. People die biologically, but they also contribute and they provide for our hearts, and we should not be in despair. We should continue to believe that we should develop. I would like to thank, first of all, two NGO families of Heavenly 100 Heroes, Cambridge Union of Ukraine, St. Edmund, Hall College, those who joined this idea. And also, I would like to stress that all people who have gathered here, they have common values and common aspirations, and I believe that the cause we are dealing with, this should be not only highly professional, we should improve our level and have critical attitude towards ourselves and to work on our publications, but also we should understand the aim. We should promote new methods and approaches to scientific work. And also I would like to ask a question about Bohdan's life, because for me, I have an open question. How did Bohdan see the future of Ukrainian science? What goals did he set? And I want to say to Stepan, you do not replace Bohdan, you continue his way, you support this family connection between you, and I believe that he is really proud of you now.
I don't know whether Bohdan saw how the science would be developing, but we have not discussed this. We have been talking about many things, but not about science. We were talking about Indians of Southern America and about not about Brexit, but about comments of Larionov. Mr. Larionov was popular. I asked Bohdan what we will have in future. We were laughing together. I arrived and he lived at Zankovetska Street near Rynak Square in Lviv. I stayed at his place, and I used sofa and he used his bed, and I was always talking and I didn't give him a chance to sleep. We didn't talk about science, surely. He's my brother. We were growing together in childhood, and when first guys died, such as Negayan, Senek, Zhizhnevsky, Senek, Mazurenko at Maidan, I asked Bohdan what we will have after that. Or maybe our mother asked what shall we have in future. Bohdan told that in terms of statehood, death, they are right death, and in a month's time Bohdan was killed. He didn't die, he was killed, and before that I called to him on 19th in the eve. We had our small revolution as well, and I called him just let people go and do everything. Where the premises here was against violence. So when the Heavenly Hundred is called terrorists, this is not right. I heard that they were compared to the combatants. The Heavenly Hundred are now equivalent to combatants, but there were no actions, military actions, no hostilities at Maidan. He was a classical European figure. I had the photo of Bohdan at home when he is in Venice at Piazza San Marco, and where the dove in his hand. It is most European. It is. What else can be more European? We can talk about Indians with him, about Catalonia, about Chinese, but not about science. We have not been talking about science with him. I would like to support Stepan because about those people who are gone, it is very hard to tell about them for relatives and not for relatives. It is especially hard. I would like that his heritage as the scientist is covered maximum wide. The personalities like Bohdan Solchanyk, they form history, and our task, which is now formed around Bohdan Solchanyk travel grant, to make so that Ukrainian researchers can speak between themselves peer to peer in the community and in our charitable activities, which we have been conducting for many years. Last Christmas we had the great topic. It appeared we just want to focus our efforts on some narrow topics, and I would like also to talk about Professor Klymko. He is a biologist, rector of college, and I would like to give the floor to Daria. She has just come back, and she talked to him, this person. Astonishes with his wide opinions. First, he is telling that he is an Englishman from Yorkshire, not just an Englishman, and it is not for the first time when he faces this topic. And Daria talked to some representatives of English community, and he is a person who is really cares. At the early stage, he told, if you apply to me, if you address me, I would support you. And on February 18th this year, this was him who gave us green light, who gave us the Centennial Hall, Cambridge University support. This is the oldest college in Oxford, so we can say that the dialogue between Oxford and Ukraine, Cambridge and Ukraine, I think that after Oxford we will visit Cambridge with our finalists, and this dialogue started at the early stage when we were working discussing the words, and the drafts have not been approved. Bohdan Solchanyk was already known, and his life and death was of interest. This is not only because he was a very bright person for Oxford. He was a representative of a new generation of Ukrainian researchers, Ukrainian research community, who contributed with his works, his explanatory work for students. He is an example for us and for his example of new generation in his professional area. And as professionals in this area, we would like his professional heritage not to be wasted and not to be forgotten. I would like to add few words about Kid Gallery, a professor. I had breakfast with him yesterday at 8 o'clock a.m. and I am very thankful to him for a very cozy reception. And I had also a chance to talk to other lecturer who is of Greek origin. He is also an Oxford lecturer, and I practiced my Greek and it was a surprise for my hosts. And for me it was also a surprise that in Oxford I could practice Greek. I was very impressed with the college. Very many things differ from Ukraine. Almost everything differ in this university. I was impressed with the atmosphere, with the relations between professors and students. They are very warm. Main focus and main emphasis is on establishing a dialogue, a warm contact between a professor and a student. And I was also impressed with the library, 2 libraries in fact. The first, the library where students can study at night as well. Unfortunately, we got this information in the morning. If I knew, I would have visited it at 5 o'clock a.m. The second library, where the books of 15th, 16th century are kept, is very impressive. It is Thomas Gopsley books. I also was impressed by the events organized in St. Edmund Hall College and the other colleges. I was invited to the party where students and professors were present. The atmosphere was very close to the one which we watched in Harry Potter movie. This is an extraordinary environment, and as Myroslava has already said, Kateryna mentioned that we should work with the students. We should teach the students willing to take part in such events. We should teach them how to apply for grants, but they do not have knowledge how to write such letters. I was impressed with the practices in the college. Myroslava knows more about this, but I was told that every week every student should write an essay. An essay is checked by the professor at very high level of verification, and the level of essay should be so high that any argument which the professor may think not very weighty, it would not be accepted by the professor. So we should teach our students these practices should be applied in Ukraine, and this would be my first mission when I am back to Odessa. I know what I will be doing with my students tomorrow. Very nice. We are very thankful to our finalists. We were when last year we were thinking who will be the applicants, and it was our first pilot project. I'm very thankful to the girls who addressed us with the questions, and we are eager to help those students who want to take part, who want to tell about Bohdan Solchanyk, to tell about Ukraine. Have you been asked about Ukraine? It was the first question. Unfortunately, Ukraine is associated with the negative events. This narrative which is negative around Ukraine, it is present despite the mass media such as BBC or CNN covering the percentage of Ukraine may be very few. It was the first question. This trend should be addressed. We should change the perception of Ukraine, the image of Ukraine, which is connected only to the negative events, only to the war, aggression, or a country which is an object of aggression on the part of Russian Federation. We should address this. We should demonstrate that Ukraine has very many other things which we are proud of, such as science, young researchers, young scientists, bright students who study in Oxford, and I had the chance to meet them and had a dialogue with them. Ukraine should not be associated only with the negative events. Daria, and what was the topic of your research? I know that you were your research was not about Ukraine. My research was European foreign policy, European Union foreign policy. It's Eastern European area. It was a Kurdish problem. I addressed it. I researched it. I researched whether the policy of the EU is concerning Kurds in Turkey and Kurds in Iraq. I was asked how my research could be, how results of my research could be applied in Ukraine in future, whether there is any value, contribution of my research for Ukraine. For me, this value is obvious because Ukraine is not a member of the EU, should consider the dynamics in foreign policy of the European Union. So researching how the EU build relations with other countries or with other minorities or subjects of foreign relations, Ukraine can choose the best mechanism to build a relationship with the EU. For me, it was important to distance from the European Union and Ukraine relations. I have many publications to the topic of the association agreement between Ukraine and the EU, and this topic is very much talked here about. I think that it is the right time to distance from the topic of the EU-Ukraine relations and use experience of other countries which are not member countries of the European Union and look onto their examples, how they build the relations with the EU. Thank you. Oksana will go to Oxford. Cambridge is not among finalists, and I think that Oksana will be the next, and her visit will be related to the legal reform. Can you share your expectations and your impressions with us, and we will have then 10 minutes for questions and answers.
I would like to explain to you why I have chosen this topic. So there will be an exam for me to enter master's degree after I finish a baccalaureate level, and this was pilot project. 1,751 students were involved, and then 16,000 participated in this external assessment test, and there were other elements concerning the reform and what concepts were used, international experience, in order to implement this in Ukraine. And the results, according to statistical data of only 20%, they didn't get the minimum score in order to apply to the master's program. Also, there were no criteria to this reform. There were exams at the level of external assessment, and the tests, they correspond to international standards, and master's external assessment, it includes knowledge of legal area, also 6 administrative, criminal process, and also English language test. So they verify the knowledge of English language. So due to such criteria and components, we can verify the ability of a student and his knowledge. Also rating of legal schools of Ukraine and the decrease of number of those institutions that provide opportunity to study law, because the number do not correspond to quality, and monitoring of the ministry proved that fact. And also in the course of my research, I liked the concept of Sergei Golovotny, who in his report stated that the concept of reform of legal education should correspond to the report of the third committee of the Forum of Lawyers that happened in Rio de Janeiro, where they identified the criteria to identify the level of a lawyer and competences he or she should have. And I believe that Oxford Education Symposium, among other things, supported the topic of legal of reform of legal education, and I believe that in this way we will be able to help, and I plan to develop my research, and by this scientific contribution I would like to provide recommendations in order to improve this reform and to properly analyze it. Thank you, Oksana, for this detailed information about reform in the sphere of legal education. So I would like to say that Bohdan is in our hearts and minds, and due to Bohdan we are inspired to do great things for Ukraine, and together we can contribute. And we hope that our circle will broaden, and we will continue this grant, and we will change some rules. We won't provide deadlines. We will accumulate funds, and people, they will apply on a roll-on basis, and we will identify whether we will be able to support them. So, and all this information will be on the page of NGO Families of Heavenly 100 Heroes, and the more application we will have, the better. So I would like to give the floor to Olga Klymko, who inspired us during this process and organization of this grant. Welcome, Olga. I want to thank all the families of Heavenly 100 Heroes who every day contribute to the cause their relatives started, who really feel this pain, and at the same time they feel presence of their relatives in life of Ukraine. Due to travel grant and our girls, this huge sacrifice, beautiful, wonderful sacrifice that was made by Heavenly 100 Heroes, that they did for Ukraine, for European and world values. We believe that this will be seen in Oxford and Cambridge. So they share these values and they are interested in this idea. Together, jointly, I would say, when we prepare this, those people who think alike, they feel that they can make changes. If you go alone, you can do really little. And if you listen to Stepan, if you hear the ideas of others, everything becomes better. And I listen to all the emotions, all the travel grant ideas, and I believe that Ukrainians of the whole world, when they hear about new principles, how to bring Ukraine to the level of world scientific conferences and to improve, change the image of Ukraine in the world. I believe that Myroslava and Alina, that the whole community will thank them, because this is a new start. I won't say that it didn't happen before, but I believe that we should raise our heads high and go to the world, and so maybe some people do not understand the idea, so they do not see every person. For them this is only Heavenly 100, but now we have the opportunity to speak about the traits of character, about the deeds of these people. So this is the idea that can contribute and change the world. Thank you, Olga. And now I would like to ask several questions. The first question to Myroslava, or maybe to Alina. Please tell us about the overall number of participants of a travel grant who applied, and from what areas are these people. As of today, applications we have less applications when we wanted to have. As of today, one of our strategic tasks is to disseminate information about our travel grant. The majority of applications were from the sphere of law and humanitarian area, but we would like to ask mathematicians and those who work in IT sector to participate. So we provide information and say why these people should participate in international scientific conferences, and universities do not provide enough motivation to students and researchers to participate in these conferences. And I would like to ask my colleague to say more about it. I would like to say one thing. We faced a weird problem with dissemination of information. Unfortunately, not all higher educational institutions of Ukraine wanted to spread this information, to post it on their sites, on official sites, or to put it on the board of information. So we didn't envisage such obstacles. Now we understand this problem, and we will be more active working with the active students. We will go from the grassroots level, and we hope that the information about grant will be presented to more people. And if some people won't be able to reach this deadline, so they won't continue to search for conferences, that we will have it on another basis. So we will look at the application. If we have funds to support this person, we will do it. And now there are no calendar deadlines for Bohdan Solchanyk grant. And also the aim is to motivate Ukrainians to build their own future, to search for conferences, and to come up with their proposals. And we will help more. We post more information about conferences, and we will ask our colleagues in Ukraine who now study in Oxford and Cambridge, not lawyers, but for example, mathematicians in Oxford, in order that they send information about future events, and we will be more active in disseminating this information in the media. And I call on you. We need recommendations from the applicants about the improvement of the procedure of travel grant, so we can change this for you. So, dear colleagues, if you have questions, we have time for one more question. I would like to ask a question. So, you deal with financing of travel grant, and how do you do this? So we hold charity events. Last year we had the charity action of this was the meeting of Oxford and Cambridge alumni and the ticket for this event was a charity contribution, and this year we are going to do the same. We want to increase our budget, and we will hold events maybe even in London in order to get more funds. We see the interest, we see the results, we are really satisfied with what the girls did, so we will move forward and we will learn from our own mistakes and move forward. So some people provide funds, so this is all a voluntary activity for us. Thank you very much for this interesting project, and we hope to listen to more news about it, about the conferences, and where our young researchers traveled. So thank you very much, and I would like to say that we will have this video on YouTube in 10 minutes.